We've talked many times about bankrupt public pension programs around the country, but that's not the worst of it. A number of convicted former politicians, many of whom are actually in jail, are still legally collecting their big pensions. Former Baltimore Mayor Sheila Dixon just secured her $83,000 per year pension despite pleading guilty to several felonies. These aren't small crimes. Former Congressman James Traficant, Randy Duke Cunningham, and William Jefferson, Republicans and Democrats, they're all still cashing in on the taxpayer dime. Now, states and towns are looking at ways to raise taxes even further to cover budget holes, and yet they still give raises to public workers despite millions of private sector layoffs. And now we find out they're paying the pensions of corrupt public officials. It's just unbelievable. Well, now we've all heard the saying that it takes a thief to catch a thief. So if we're to start with the assertion that government can't raise taxes until every bit of waste, inefficiency, and corruption is weeded out from town halls to state houses to the U.S. Capitol, who would be the best man to do it? Now, our man would have to know a thing or two about corruption and the venality plaguing government. In fact, it could make a great reality show. Let's call it Cleaning Up the State House. Former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich just got fired by Donald Trump, so he needs a job in television, but he could be the perfect star for our show. He maintains, by the way, he is innocent of the charge that he sold President Barack Obama's Senate seat, but given Chicago's reputation, we'd love to know what he'd do if he was still governor to pay state budgets while not raising taxes a single dime. Joining us now from Chicago, former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich. So what do you think of our idea? Cleaning up State House. It'd be a great reality show. You'd be the perfect person to host it. Would you take the job?
I'd love to take a job like that, and I'd like to start right here in Illinois. There is a corrupt status quo in Illinois government. You have a Democratic House Speaker who is a multimillionaire lawyer representing big real estate interests in downtown Chicago. Homeowners who live in bungalows in Chicago pay more in property taxes than they should because he's protecting his clients. We have a Senate President in Illinois, John Cullerton, who is also a registered lobbyist. Now, think about that. You have a guy who's the Senate President who's also being paid as a lobbyist. Imagine what he says to his clients. Give me a $10,000 retainer. I have a good relationship with the Senate President. I think I can sway him to do what's right for your particular special interest. So, yes, Illinois is a place, and it's not unlike other states. I don't think it's that different here than it is in other places.
Let me just stop you right there, Governor. I think that's a great point. So many people say the Chicago way, and it does. There certainly is a history there. You know it better than anyone, but there's also a history in New York that goes way back, a history in nice, clean Boston. Boston town had a lot of corruption. It probably still does. We remember a lot of people there that were up to no good. And, of course, it goes all the way to the West Coast. But what would you pinpoint as the most corrupt part of any state government?
Well, I think the conflict of interests in Illinois, the Illinois legislature, is probably the biggest part of it. That's for the corruption tax people are paying. And let me point out, I am innocent of all the false accusations against me. But in addition to that, I kept my word to the people of Illinois. For 6 years as governor, I said I would not raise the income tax on them, and I didn't. And I also said that once I was hijacked from office, my successor would be part of a corrupt deal, an unholy bargain with the Democratic leadership in my state to raise taxes on people. And just as I predicted, he's proposed a 50% increase in taxes, and now he's whittled it down to a 33% increase at a time, Governor, David, where people have no money.
That's exactly the idea, that before you begin to talk any talk at all about raising taxes, there is so much waste and corruption and fraud that you can squeeze out of local government. You know where the bodies are buried. You may literally know where some bodies are buried. I mean, why don't you work with the feds and just coming out with empty your little black book with all of the secrets and all of the deals that you saw being made when you were in the State House?
Well, you know, a lot of the corruption, David, in Illinois is actually legal. It's corrupt in the sense that it's fundamentally wrong. When the people who make the rules, the Speaker of the House here, Mike Madigan, the Senate President, John Cullerton, benefit financially from the laws as they keep them because they represent clients. When you have law firms, for example, who hire state lawmakers, and then it's in their interest to raise taxes on people so they could issue more debt, so there's more bonding business for these big silk-stocking law firms. These are the sorts of things that are technically maybe not legally corrupt because these guys make the rules and say it's okay to do, but it's it is corrupt because it's the wrong thing to do to taxpayers.
How much are we talking about? How much does it add up to?
Billions.
Are we talking tens of millions, hundreds of millions, what?
Billions. You're talking about
billions.
Potentially several billion dollars when you take that, you take corporate loopholes that are designed to protect certain special interests. When you consider the fact that they will hire more state employees than they need to, not because it's necessary, but because the public employees unions want them to do it. It runs up into the billions. And here again, I kept my promise for 6 years not to raise taxes on people in Illinois. Budgets are tough now for governors all across America, but there are several ways where they can balance the budget in Illinois still without raising taxes on people. But if they do it, they're going to make a lot of enemies, as I did, in that system in state government, where you have what I call the political-industrial complex.
What about construction projects, things like that, buying street lights? We had a corruption scandal here in New York several years ago involving parking meters, giving special deals to contractors. That must add up into the tens of millions, if not more, too, right?
Yeah, and here, let me give you a case in point. When I was the governor back in, I think it was 2005, I pushed legislation that passed that banned violent video games. We were challenged on constitutional grounds by certain groups and lawmakers. A big, powerful law firm in Chicago was hired to go to court, and they successfully made the case. A law that bans violent video games and limits them to kids under 16 was unconstitutional. Then they billed the taxpayers, that big firm billed the taxpayers for their work. Another example is the Democratic leader Mike Madigan here in Illinois and his daughter, the Attorney General Lisa Madigan, secretly went and prevented poor people from getting health care after President Bush reduced the rolls. We challenged them. I expanded and kept those families on health care. They sued us, and then after I was removed from office, they were able to get the taxpayers to pay the big law firms nearly $2 million in legal fees to keep poor people from getting health care.
See, Governor, I got to tell you, I don't know whether you're innocent or guilty. You're going to have your day in court. That day is coming. You'll have to reckon with whatever the court decides in a fair jury. But you are a font of very valuable information about how to cut down on corruption. I think a show called Cleaning Up the State House would be ideal for you. So if your agent would give us a call. No, I can't promise you anything on Fox Business, but I think we should use you, Governor. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Hey, David, let me say this. If I had a show like that, Donald Trump would never fire me.
All right. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Coming up on deck, the